when SMU faces off against Clemson this weekend in the ACC Championship game. We're going to tell you all the prospects that you need to be watching from the offensive side, the defensive side, and the X factors. Running back Brashard Smith will be one of the best players on the field. We're going to talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at LeadTalentCode. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft DP. Today's show, man, we are going through the ACC Conference Championship game, right? We're going to preview the draft prospects to pay attention to. Yes, we get Clemson, right? Syracuse, what the head coach, Fran Brown, said, tell Dabo Swinney, I said you're welcome, right? So we get Clemson. We get SMU in the ACC Championship game, a loaded matchup with a lot of prospects. We're going to talk offense. We're going to talk defense. We're going to talk X factor. So you know what? Stay tuned for the entire show. DP, I'm going to get this thing started with these offensive prospects.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Keith, when you're talking about offensive prospects to watch in the ACC Championship game, I got to start with SMU with the running back position. Brashard Smith. Like, this is one of the more dynamic and explosive ball carriers and just running backs in this class, right? Arguably the fastest, honestly, in open field. I think that he's clocked in at top speed at like 22 miles per hour. But everybody, when you watch SMU's offense, you're going to see him handle the stretch zone, outside zone stuff. He, from a football IQ standpoint, I really like this young man. I think that he processes information well. He's a quick decision maker. You know, those wide zone runs, you got to either bang, bend, or bounce. You got to make that decision quickly because you're in the backfield trying to figure out what is going on and where are the advantageous lanes. And he does a good job deciphering between the three. But where I think that he like really can be a problem for Clemson is catching the ball out of the backfield. I remember I was watching Barrett Carter, which we'll talk about him in the next topic. And when we talk about the defensive guys, I was studying him a couple weeks ago, probably about 2 weeks ago, and I can't remember who they played, but the running back gave him a little bit of trouble out of the backfield in the passing game. Especially, I think it was the Pittsburgh game because they have that shifty pass catching running back.
Yeah,
something like that. Like the kid is nice, like, but he's undersized. He's really quick and really quick twitch, right, and really good out of the backfield. He beat him on like a wheel route. I think a Texas angle route, stuff like that. I think Brashard Smith can create a mismatch against Barrett Carter and those linebackers, Wade Woodaz, those type of guys, because he is a twitchy, explosive mover, but he also catches the ball pretty well out of the backfield. And I think that's going to be a big part of this offense for SMU.
Yeah, DP, I think so too, right? The running game, and then you parlay that with probably setting up the play action to get some of these wide receivers involved, right? And SMU at this point, right, you don't know if they have any standout wide receiver, right? But the combination of Moochie, Dixon, Roderick, Daniels, right? Like they are shifty guys that you have to get hands on, right? Because in the open field, they are the type of wide receivers that'll make you miss, just some of that Texas speed, right? So you definitely have to pay attention to the SMU wide receivers off of that play action, their ability to potentially take deep shots, things like that, right? They're probably going to be aiming for explosive plays, and SMU is probably going to take the approach of we don't have nothing to lose. And I get it that they're in the playoffs, playoffs, but you're still in position of where you're like, man, we have everything to gain and we don't want to leave this to chance, right? So why not try to go? You have to beat Clemson. I think them not beating Clemson, they're not in the playoffs, right? Point blank period.
Yeah.
I think that's how that will happen. So DP, let's switch over to Clemson, man. Talk about a couple of their offensive prospects, right? And I'm going to start with running back Phil Maffa. We talk about Phil Maffa just toting the rock, man. And we talked about it a couple episodes ago. I believe that was last week. And you talked about kind of how he, I want to say, tailored off just a little bit, right? And I want to see if it's a healthy Phil Maffa, it's a motivated Phil Maffa, right? If Cade Klubnik is not operating on all cylinders, that they can turn around, hand the rock off to him and win by simply pounding SMU. I'm sorry, not just teams, specifically SMU in the trenches, right? And he can carry the game for them and then allow Cade to kind of get his footing, because I think that's kind of sets the foundation for Clemson and their rhythm offensively.
No, 100%. I think, Cade Klubnik has grown and developed well this year, but it's all about making, like, offensively. For Garrett Riley, the job is going to be, let's force SMU's defense to stay in the same picture. Let's force them to, whatever you're showing us pre-snap, you got to drop into that post-snap, because that's when Cade Klubnik is able to play fast, right? When you change the picture on him quickly, now he's got my initial read was that button hook, but they dropped off into, into the curl of flats. They dropped off into that area, and I didn't expect that. I figured that edge rusher was going to rush, but they're fire zoning me, and they're dropping that guy off. They're bringing pressure backside, and now I got to pivot off of that. And it's like, I always say this with quarterbacks, every snap, especially passing plays, it's a multiple choice question. You got to quickly decipher that 2 + 2. If A is not open, that means A is 7. You know that 7 is not equal 2 + 2. Get off of that read. And if that's going to be a big thing for kids, just quickly deciphering through that, Keith. And I think, like, getting Phil Maffa going is going to be a big part of their offense. Set the passing game up through the run game, and then Phil Maffa needs to have a big game. This is a game where I honestly want to see him touch the ball 20+ times. Be a physical 230-pound back, and a defense that we'll get into in the next topic. You want to wear them down, Keith. But I want to go to for Phil Maffa and for Cade Klubnik to have a good day. That right tackle, that offensive line has to play well. Yeah, the trenches have to play well. Blake Miller is 6'6", 300+ pounds. He's athletic. Like, I think he might, I can't remember if he's a former tight end that converted to, throughout his life, converted to tackle, but he's an athletic, big, strong young man. He's better in the run game than in the pass. This is going to be a big game for him, because SMU has edge rushers that could stress him out and get in the backfield consistently. That defensive line, they mix and match guys. They have guys that are versatile in terms of, I'm listed as an edge rusher, but I'll knock down into a 5-tech, and we'll bring a smaller edge rusher in off the bench, and we'll pin our ears back and get after you. So he's going to have to play kind of a lights-out game, help open lanes in the run game, right? But also be able to keep Cade Klubnik protected. And one of their best targets, Cade's got to find him. And to me, I feel like they need to not funnel the passing game through him. Jake Brenningstool. There's too many times on tape with Jake Brenningstool, the tight end, is open, and Cade does not throw the ball to him. And it's like, man, like, what would your draft stock be if you were in an offense where you were featured? We talked about that with Colston Loveland, and like Clemson's passing offense way better than what Michigan had.
Oscar Delp, right? We talked about it with Oscar Delp.
Oscar, same thing. Benjamin Urasek, same thing at Georgia. Like, man, if you can get these guys are difference makers. They change the math. These guys call for attention. They're the biggest mismatch creators on the field. So it's like, I know Antonio Williams has had I feel like I've been talking about it for like 3 years now. But this young man is a baller, and he's there. I think their number one wide receiver in terms of yards and stuff like that. This offense for Clemson has enough playmakers. SMU just got run the ball. Jennings, the quarterback, Keith, good player. He's not eligible till next year. He's a little bit of an undersized guy. He's like 6 foot for 185, Kevin Jennings, but he's a dual threat kid. Like, he knows how to make plays. Like you talk about with the receivers, Shar Smith, the running back. Only thing that sucks is that RJ Maryland is out with the ACL. If RJ Maryland was in, it'd be like, man, like this SMU offense would be operating on full cylinders.
Yeah, I agree with DP. Listen, we talked SMU as far as the running back, right? We talked Clemson, get the trenches in the run game going. Now it's time to switch sides of the football. We're talking defensive prospects, we're talking X factors coming up next.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So say bye-bye to overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes, unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Defensive prospects to watch in the ACC Championship game. Keith, I alluded to when I talked about Blake Miller. They have two edge rushers that like Clemson's got to be aware of. Number one is Elijah Roberts, that young man. He's number 5, 6'4", 295. He reminds me of Preston Smith, who was with I think he started with the Commanders, went to Green Bay, and then I think he's been traded. I can't remember where he's at now in the NFL, but he was traded this season. But kind of that big body guy who's got functional athleticism that can rush with his hand in the dirt, stand up off the edge. And when I was watching tape on him, like he's a big body, strong style pass rusher, functional hand quickness, understands how to knock and dislodge hands, but he's a high effort guy. So it's like even when they try to slide protection to him, duo block him in pass protection, he just doesn't stop working towards the quarterback. So it's like being able to really put pressure off one side, and they could collapse both ends because Jafari Harvey, he's more of the speed rusher, 6'4", 251, but he can convert speed to power. He's got the long arm. You're talking about a guy that has really good hands. He has a two-way move set. He can rush inside with inside counters. He can attack the outside. He said his use of hands is advanced for me. And I think with him, those two guys being differentiating in styles, oh yeah, you can collapse the pocket. Like you can absolutely collapse both ends of the pocket. And then with Roberts, he's one of those guys that can kick down and play 5-tech and some 3-tech because he is nearly 300 pounds, but he stands up as an edge rusher on the outside and then reduce down inside as well. So you might see some sets where they rush Jafari and Elijah Roberts on the same exact side to try and create a mismatch. And I think what we talked about Blake Miller, the thing with Blake Miller has always been technique with him. Athleticism and strength is not a problem. You got to make sure you don't give your chest up to these guys. These are the type of edge rushers that if you give up your chest, if your hands aren't where they're supposed to be, they're going to beat you, especially Harvey. Harvey hands are very quick. What he does a good job of is closing space between him and the blocker and then being decisive and quick with his hands, with his punches. So once he closes that space, he anticipates the punch, and he knows how to cross chop you. He knows how to just chop your arm down, club the outside hand, swipe, and then he's around the edge. You know what I mean? And he throws multiple multiple moves at a tackle just in one pass rush rep. So when I think about that defense for SMU and got prospects to watch, both of them are eligible for this class. If I remember correct, I think both of them are seniors.
Yeah,
like, and I think they're the top guys, the top sack artists on the team.
Yep, both of them are seniors, DP. So obviously this is a big time moment, and just for them, period, right? Because it's not too many times SMU is in prime time situations, right? I think that they're here and they play good football, and even with them being in the rankings, people still just like SMU, right? But hey, you got a chance at the ACC title. I don't even think some people knew they was in the ACC, to be completely honest, right?
Right.
Still trying to get used to it. But I like that matchup, DP, just because of what we said earlier as far as naming offensive tackles, Tristan Lee and Blake Miller, right? It's like, okay, this is going to be a key situation to pay attention to, right? Just like who wins these reps, who's able to shut down that person, who's able to make the pass rushers for SMU able to make one game-changing play, or they able to disrupt Cade Klubnik, right? So I'm looking at that. But let's switch to the Clemson side of the football, DP, and there's some guys over there, a lot of young guys, right? We love to talk about TJ Parker and Peter Woods, but we'll start this thing off with our guy Barrett Carter, right? And you kind of hinted at it earlier. His matchup, right? Brashard Smith, that's your guy, right? You got to follow him. They always say that running back and linebacker, they take the same type of thought processes, right? It's just opposing sides of the football as far as finding the right gaps to hit, right? Pressing, and then in the sense at linebacker, you kind of jump cut a little bit, right? Because you're trying to move from one gap to another. So you got to follow Brashard Smith through this situation, right? You want to shut him down. And like you said, in a passing game, right? If it's swing routes, you don't know if they're gonna put him on a wheel route, right? You got to be able to run vertical, push vertical with him, and be able to cover him down the field, because at this point he's probably the best offensive weapon, right? And so that's a second level guy. You take care of him, and you shut him down, and then now you force this SMU offense to go in a different direction as far as what they have to do to be able to execute.
God, 100%. Even with Barrett Carter, you're gonna probably have to play some QB spy at times with Kevin Jennings,
because he gets out,
being a dual threat. You got a pass rush. You can get back there with 4. You know what I mean? You guys have NFL talent littered all over that defensive line. So if your edge rushers, if TJ Parker and Peter Woods and those guys collapse the pocket on Jennings, if you're in zone, you got to make sure, of course, it's going to be a difficult matchup from a mental standpoint. You got to keep your head on the swivel, see the incoming routes, entering and exiting your zone. But then you also got to pan back to the quarterback and make sure he's still in the pocket, because he can absolutely create dynamic plays with his legs. And I think that's going to be a big thing for him. Keep the trenches for Clemson, man. DeMonte Capehart. We talk about Brashard Smith. Like this is a game where you got to be a difference maker for Clemson in terms of like against that run game, and they do a lot of movement stuff. So the wide zone, stretch zone type things, and that's fine. But you got to DeMonte Capehart, you got to strike and penetrate the backfield. You got to create havoc early in the rep, and especially one thing zone running backs don't like is to see a defensive lineman push their guard from, instead of moving laterally down the line of scrimmage, now you reset the line of scrimmage. He's got to bounce it and widen out his path to try and still be able to attack. And now the potential cutback lanes are delayed or probably filled and clogged back at this point. DeMonte Capehart is going to be a big game for him. Also helping out Barrett Carter, right? Because not just being able to create penetration in one-on-one situation, but maybe command that double team, eat up blocks, eat up space to where they can't climb up to the second level and pick Barrett Carter off. And you let Barrett Carter flow freely to the football, right? Whether he's the spill or splat guy, whatever it may be, let him be able to play freely without having to worry about those interior offensive linemen, that center, that guard tandem climbing up to the second level. So I think with DeMonte Capehart, this is a game for him. You know what I mean? To be able to really just like signature, stamp yourself in terms of I can stop, not just because it's really hard to run gap scheme stuff at him. He's not going to let you just move him off the ball and down gap man blocks one-on-one. But now against zone stuff, which we know is so prevalent in the NFL, in the West Coast offenses that's taking over the league right now, you got to be able to move laterally, strike, keep your footwork and your feet clean, but then also be able to strike and create some movement into the backfield and disrupt the timing of the running back. This is a big game for Brashard Smith to stamp himself as signature himself as one of the best backs in college football and in the 2025 NFL draft class. DeMonte Capehart has to be able to counter that and be able to kind of create a net negative in the sense and just like neutralize him and that run game early, especially early on in the game. Let your pass rushers have favorable third and longs to get back there.
Yeah, DP, and this is going to be big for DeMonte because he's coming off of the injury, right? Getting hurt against Louisville and finally have an opportunity to return. I know it's some things with South Carolina. I don't think he ended up playing, right? But it looks like he was close to playing against South Carolina. Yeah. So I feel like he's going to play in the ACC Championship. So with DeMonte Capehart, I'm right there with you because you're talking about one of the like guys that was rising and trending, moving up draft rankings, right? And then the injuries kind of tailed off a little bit this last month. But yeah, what better time to be like, hey, I'm back and I'm the best, right? Than the ACC Championship game in order to get into the playoffs and stamp yourself as one of the best interior defensive linemen in this class. But DP, let's wrap this thing up with X Factor. Yeah, which guy is going to make the biggest difference? I know where I'm going with it, DP. I can't wait to talk about this coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. To get in on the action, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, to get in on the action, that's FanDuel.com. You need to visit to join today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. X factors to watch in the ACC Championship game. Keith, I'm going to stick with Clemson's defensive line, and I'm going to talk about Peyton Page. Peyton Page, the 6'4", 310-pound interior defensive lineman, guy that has 18 pressures on the season, 2 sacks. He's been getting after it. Big body, big frame, strong, but he has enough functional athleticism for a big body guy as well in the interior. And I think being able to mix and match between him, Peter Woods, DeMonte Capehart, they got Trey Williams. Yeah, I don't like when you think about this defensive line, if they play up to their standard and to their skill level, it's hard. It should be hard to run against them, right? Like it's hard to run against them. I know Raheem Sanders and Lenore Sellers, when Lenore Sellers was a grown man last weekend. You know what I mean? It was what it was. There's not much you could do about that. But Raheem Sanders, they kept him kind of in check for the most part in that game. You know what I mean? They didn't let him dictate and control the game. They can't allow Brashard Smith to do it either. I think as an X factor in this in the 2025 class, and he's a senior, Peyton Page is not a guy that gets a lot of fanfare or talked about a lot. I just think that there's a chance for him, especially his pass rush win rate for a 310-pound guy, like on true dropback sets, he's at 14%. Like he's at 14%. He's like up there. You know what I mean? Like, of course, they got so many edge rushers and the guys that dominate that stat themselves. But like for a guy that plays as much as he does, he's one of the better guys on this team. Like he's better at getting to the quarterback than DeMonte Capehart is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where Capehart's more of the run stuffer, big, long arm, physical, just like tone setter and pace setter at the line of scrimmage. Like Peyton Page flashes more quickness and agility to be able to make guys miss, use his hands, cross face, and get into the backfield. So I think just that depth that they have on the D line, that defensive coordinator, like, yeah, you got to have these guys ready to play, because you should be able to dominate the trenches in this game. You got way too many guys on the front seven. You could think about those Eagles was it the Super Bowl year where they had all those different defensive linemen. Yep. Like they can just rotate guys. This is what Clemson has. If you do it right, you should not lose the battle in the trenches, in my opinion.
Yeah, DP, and I agree with that, right? And that might be why you even lean and decide to go Clemson, because if you believe that this game is won in the trenches, Then you look at Clemson, they have the better trenches players, right? And like you said, that's not even talking about the sophomore guys. It's TJ Parker and Peter Woods, which 2026 NFL draft, those guys would be towards the top of
First
it, right?
round.
Yeah. DP, my X Factor guy. I mean, I'm gonna make this obvious. I'm going with the obvious pick. It gotta be Cade Klubnik, DP. The Clemson Tigers are coming off a loss, right, to in-state rival South Carolina, which is huge, right? Because over the past 10, 15 years, Clemson has probably just flat out dominated this rivalry, right? And they got punched in the mouth. And something I looked at, DP, and I'm just looking at the scoring for Cade Klubnik. Now, this is strictly passing, right? Georgia, they lost. He had no passing touchdowns. Louisville, they lost. He had 1 passing touchdown. South Carolina, they lost. He had 0 passing touchdowns, right? So in the 3 losses that they've had, right, Georgia, South Carolina, and Louisville, he's had 1 passing touchdown combined, right? So he has to, and the legs have been going, like South Carolina, I believe he had 2 rushing touchdowns, but he has to, if he's going to use his legs, the legs have to set up the passing game and the explosive plays, right? So simply Cade Klubnik has to find a way with the football to be accurate, to throw the ball down the field, to push the ball to these playmakers that he got. Like you said, you've been talking about Antonio Williams, right? You have TJ Moore. You got Brian Wesco. You have some of these electric playmakers. Now, the thing is, you gotta dial it up. You gotta call it. You gotta push the ball down the field. You have to be accurate with your passes, and I think that's gonna be the key to the game. Can they get the passing game operating? Because when it's good, right? When it's on, like you said, if he goes for 1, he's probably going for 3, 4, 5 touchdowns, right? And you want that type of situation for Cade Klubnik. So I'm going with Cade as the X Factor game. Like if he's dialed in and he's locked in, he's feeling comfortable with the game plan. He gets off to a fast start. Clemson can run away with this game.
No, 100%. And I think that's going to be the big thing for him, Keith, because like you said, like Antonio Williams is their leading receiver. He's got 792 yards receiving, and he has 10 receiving touchdowns. Like he is one of the best kept secrets at the wide receiver position in college football. Like, you know what I mean? And he good route runner, explosiveness, speed. Like he tracks the ball well. He just gets open, man. And it's like I've been talking about since he was a freshman, and I'm like, this kid has the goods to be a really good NFL wide receiver. Maybe not number 1, but definitely a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in a pass happy offense. Like he can get it done. And I think for Cade, it's all about, like I said, getting the run game going, getting him settled. I think with Cade, he gets so jittery, he gets so hyped up for games. It's like, man, just slow it down, relax. Like, you know, you watching basketball, you could tell like a young team is just way too hyped. Like every time they get a rebound, it's just fast break, and they're out of control. And do you get the veteran point guards like, yeah, I get the rebound. Slow it down. Let's relax. Let's set up our offense. Let's get into our sets and let's go. That's what Cade Klubnik needs to be. Like he's got to slow down. He's got to settle down because when he plays under control, as you talked about, against Georgia, he didn't play completely under control. They lost. Against South Carolina, like in the passing game, because they ended the game with him throwing the pick that was, I think, deflected and everything like that. Like he's got to settle down, play within the offense. Again, use your legs when it's called for. Like those edge rushers, that D-line that SMU has, they can get after it. Use your legs when it's called for. I think him and Antonio Williams offensively will absolutely be like X factors for this game, because if SMU can't cover Antonio Williams, that's going to open everybody else. So it's going to open up the 2 freshmen, Brian Wesco, TJ Moore, the 2 4- and 5-star kids, the 2 explosive, like 18-year-olds that bring the deep ball into this offense. Jake Brenningstool, dear God, Cade, get the ball to your 6'6", 240-pound tight end. Like he's a mismatch. I want him against those linebackers and against those safeties, Keith. And a guy defensively for everybody to watch in this safety class, because again, as we talked about a month ago, Keith, nobody's talking about the safeties in the 2025 NFL draft class. RJ Mickens, 6 foot 210. He fits the mold of what we look for in NFL safeties now. All these guys do, really. He plays all over the defense. He has 239 snaps as a box defender, 258 snaps as a deep safety, and 80 snaps in the slot. He makes plays. He helps get everybody set, like kind of quarterback the secondary, things like that. He's one of the veterans. It was him and Andrew Makuba for years until Andrew Makuba went to Texas. And I think for Clemson, they need RJ Mickens to have a good game because of the fact that you want to take it with a quick passing game, and you need to have somebody that safety that, again, he plays in the box a lot, be that +1 in the run game where you don't have to run blitz. It's more so, hey, we can run fit, not run blitz, I think RJ Mick is due for a big game, and it could really help his stock in this championship game on Saturday night. Prime time, Keith, 8:00 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Listen, like if this don't get you hyping, if you're one of these players on these teams, if you don't get hyped knowing that all eyes are going to be on us like Tupac, then I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to tell you, Keith. If you don't understand that all eyes are going to be on you, this is your moment. This is your moment.
Yep. No, and this is the one gripe I have, right? And the ACC and the Big Ten got to figure this out. Why are we playing at the same time, right? Like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, the same exact time. DP, they say, you know what? You're going to kick off at that time. I'm going to kick off at that time too, right?
The schedule is weird anyway, because they have what is it? They got like 3 games on Friday night that honestly, outside of UNLV and Boise State, the other 2 championship games you could put on Thursday. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You could put those games on Thursday, and if you wanted to, you could have moved one of the other games to a Friday night and let them be the prime time Friday night game. Keep people in the house. It's winter time right now. It's like 20 degrees here. You know what I mean? 20, 30 degrees. People ain't really going out on Friday nights. They chilling in the house. You know what I mean? So yeah, they kind of messed the schedule up just a little bit.
Well, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us, because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everyday's. Keith, you alluded to it. Big 10 championship game. We're going to break down that game. Same format, offensive, defensive prospects to watch, and those X factors to watch when Penn State travels to Oregon. Well, not travel to Oregon. They're going to be in Indianapolis, but Penn State's on the road. But Penn State versus Oregon, number 1 versus number 4.
Might be an upset.
Might be an upset. Keith called it upset early. Okay. So we're going to talk about that game on tomorrow's show and all the prospects that you need to watch for the 2025 NFL Draft. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.